folks. Today we're going to talk about a remix that I just finished. Um, so, essentially, this was the song that I was remixing. There's an artist in Brazil who reached out to me and wanted me to mix his song, or remix his song. So here it is.
I'll be the light. I'll follow you.
Okay, so you get the idea of what this track. That's a preview of the track. The track's called "The Ends of the Earth" by Carjay. And this girl named Addie Nicole is singing on the track. But yeah, so that's the track. And so I wanted to take that and remix it, and which I did, but I went a completely different direction with it. So usually what I do is I kind of basically go ahead and only take a little bit of the track that I need that I'm remixing. So in this case, I looked at all the different stems that were there, and I decided to just not use any of them except just the vocal. So literally, I have the vocal running, and I also modified the vocal too, just to kind of include only some parts of the vocal and not the entire thing. So I built a song around it, and it's quite different. So here it is. Check it out.
I'll be the light when you're blind. Freeze for a moment in time. I'll follow you till the ends of the earth. When you call for help, you know I'll be there first. I'll be the light when you're blind. Freeze for a moment in time. I'll be the light when you're blind. Freeze for a moment in time. I'll be the light when you're blind.
Well, as you can see, I went to a pretty different direction with this kind of very cinematic sound. That's because in my earlier video I was mentioning that I got the NI Ultimate pack, and I wanted to kind of make use of that. So I wanted to make use of the strings, the different pianos, all kinds of different stuff. So it's a track that's being released on the 15th of February. So I'll post the link, I guess, at that time. But yeah, so I kind of wanted to just quickly talk about how this thing kind of works when you're thinking about a remix, or when I think about a remix. So essentially, let me there we go, do that. So the way I look at it is this: I try to, I had a track, I was given all the different stems, so one at a time I listen to the stems to see what I want to take out. Usually I want to sort of have almost nothing of the main melody lines or main chord progressions, because I want, I don't like remixes that are just like, well, let me put a loop on top of that and call it a day. So I start with things like the vocal, right? Because the vocal is kind of the hook that can kind of keep you in the song. It kind of lets you know, hey, it's that song that you heard before, but it's different, right? So a vocal helps. Little bleeps and bloops, if you want to use, you can do them, like transition-y little things to kind of remind people of the original song. So essentially that's what kind of happened here. So just to show where we started here in terms of what started this whole arrangement, it was essentially the piano, right? So again, I went, as I've covered in my prior videos, I at first made sure that I had a chord progression that I liked. So basically, what I did was I listened to the vocal, and I made sure that the chord progression would sort of follow the vocal.
I'll be the light when you're blind. Freeze for a moment in time. I'll follow you till the ends of the earth. When you call for help,
You see how that's following it?
be there first. I'll be the light when you're blind.
So when she tends to sing a higher note, I tend to go higher. This is a B minor scale, but then I went into the relative major when she made this little sound right here.
I'll follow you.
Just to kind of give it that little thing. And I kind of carry that forward into the breakdown as well. It just gives it a different flavor. And you're sort of emphasizing the D major chord, I guess. So here's what it sounds like.
There's nothing we cannot be. Invincible, you and me.
So yeah, it just gives it a different flavor. All of a sudden, it's like it was a sad kind of a sounding thing, and it just picks up there, right? So it just kind of brightens it up. So yeah, play around with that. So again, when you start with a vocal, remember the vocal has a couple of things embedded inside it, right? the vocal is rhythmic because she's singing in a rhythm, right? So and also she's singing in pitch, so it's melodic. So there's a melody hidden inside the vocal. So when you listen to a vocal,
Invincible, you and me.
so if you were to tap that, you would do a dot 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 dot, right? So that's how she's singing it,
Invincible, you and me.
right? So that rhythmic pattern. So what I try to do is I try to play around that rhythmic pattern to make sure my chord progression is sort of playing with that rhythmic pattern. And then also, of course, my chord progression can't clash with her, the notes that she is singing. So if she's singing a note, and then I'm playing a chord progression which clashes with that note, then you need to fix that, right? So basically, the notes need to work together. But you can surprise the listener a bit by, not just playing the same things. You don't have to go B minor. You can go try something else, right? So just saying, you can follow the vocal, but kind of play around it to give different textures. So that's kind of what happened in this remix. I started with literally that piano. And then I started to take that piano and started layering stuff on top of it. So first it was just this piano, and then came another piano, and then came another violin. But the violin, it's playing something different than the piano is, right? So I wanted to make sure that the violin was playing with the piano, with the singer, but different. So
I'll be the light when you fly. Freeze for a moment in time.
and more violins come in. And the way I got to those parts was more just about thinking about it. So I know in my prior videos, I had been following the method that deadmau5 has been following to sort of create things like chord progressions. So what I found doing this remix was that that's a great starting point for me personally, and it should be for a lot of you guys. It gives you the ability to sort of come up with this type of complex chord progression, which sounds awesome. You can put arpeggiators on that thing. You can put it on different layers. You can put different layers of synth, and they all sound. It sounds great. And you experiment, right, to come up with your little 16-bar thing that you're coming up with. And then you can copy on to another channel and put another synth on there, and that'll just sound even different. So just layering on top of each other. And then what I found was this: if I just looped item, that I've created a bit, and then listen to it, and then try to come up with something else to accompany it, eventually, once you get to a point where you're sort of thinking about it, it just kind of comes to you. So this whole violin thing, and this whole little sort of dun 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 dun. So that kind of stuff, it's not that I'm totally driving it from the chord progression. I didn't take the chord progression, copy it over, and then start like messing around with it or anything like that. But it was more like, what do I want? And then I kind of like started kind of trying to think of a concept, and then I thought of a concept like, well, what if I was doing these staccato type notes, like dun 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 dun, like that, and then I said, okay, I want to make sure that I stay in the same key, so I copied this over, and then as you guys know, I always have that thing on the left hand side where I can not hit a note that's out of key, so I copied that over here, and then I started sort of literally going in there and putting this together based on what I wanted to hear. So I'm just saying that not everything is just sort of like a copy paste of a chord progression and then you sort of play around with that, and then you can get other ideas just by listening and just by sort of trying to fit something in there that works. The other point I wanted to also talk about was tempos. So I don't usually play with tempos in a song, but a friend of mine kind of used this word saying, you know EDM artists don't really go up and down in tempo. They don't let the song breathe, right? So this whole concept of the song breathing intrigued me, so I wanted to kind of do something. So it you won't be able to tell because I am sort of playing around with little differences here. I literally, within a 10 tempo point range here, I start with like 127.52, and then I go up to like 136.46, and then kind of in the middle I go back down to 129, and then go back up to 138. So I'm doing a lot of these little tempo changes, and I mean, they felt natural to do within what was happening in the song. At some points I needed to be slow, and at some point I needed to be a little faster. At some point I needed to be faster but sort of going up, right? So because there was a build. So that was interesting to do. I haven't played around with tempos before, but it kind of worked out in this song. So just saying that you may want to try that out. Vary the tempo at different times and see what you get. Right, you never know. You might get something awesome. So that you may end up using. Also, another thing I did here was, so the usual sort of main theme of the song was this.
I'll be the light when you're blind.
So that kind of thing was the usual thing. But then I also kind of inserted this whole different thing in the middle of it, just because I wanted to have that. So I'm always trying to sort of go into the genre that I'm kind of dancing around the genre that I want to create, but I haven't gotten there yet. I haven't gotten to my sound, quote unquote, yet, and I don't want to leave EDM, right? I don't want to start making like cinematic music, but I want to bring some parts of it into EDM, right? So with that said, I leave components like these in, or I create them to sort of bring some of that, into the song. Like, that's a complete departure from the different, like, what the melody, the other thing was, what the vocal was. Anyways, it goes on for a little while, but the whole idea here, the way I created that was I used the chord progressions, and then I put an arpeggiator on there. I did some kind of arpeggiation, okay, and then I rendered the notes to another track. So as you know, when you put an arpeggiator on top of your track, what happens is it's doing that in live, right? So when you're arpeggiating through the chords, you are doing that live, and that you can have strange issues with that. You can have a note hitting that you don't want it to hit at the weird times, and sometimes arpeggiators, like, depending on how you're starting and stopping, they can get kind of weird. So what I noticed was, what you do is you compile the notes to a new track. Okay, so you just create a new MIDI track, and then tell it to listen to the track with the arpeggiator and record onto the new MIDI track. And when you do that, the actual notes that the arpeggiator is playing are actually written down, translated for you on the new track. and then you take the arpeggiator off in the new in the old track, and you put that other compiled MIDI notes onto that original track. So that's how you get there without. So that's how you start playing kind of an arpeggiated sound without an arpeggiator being here in this track, right? And then you can move the notes along. So one of the favorite things to do for me is to get an arpeggiator started, and then go in and modify it, because now you've all of a sudden got a new thing, right? You're not just like looping to the same notes or whatnot. You can actually affect that, because with the arpeggiator you were able to get some type of a rhythmic pattern and a start of a melodic pattern, right? So you can go in there now, because you've taken those notes and have translated them into notes into another track. Now you can go in there and actually move these notes around. So it's a little bit of a nice way of kind of controlling your arpeggiation. So that's the track. It's releasing on the 15th. Ask me questions if you have any. Yeah. And I guess I'll post another video with just the track, so you guys can just kind of hear that track if you want to listen to it from head to toe. All right. Well, until next time, try out some of these things and let me know how they work out for you. See you later.